Hello everyone, this is part 1 of What If Naruto Was a Genius Like His Father, and this story is made by Kamikaze 132, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Naruto Uzumaki was not a normal boy by any means. Naruto Uzumaki wasn't your run-of-the-mill orphan. He was, as every orphan was, without a parent. He was, as every orphan was, lonely. He was, as every orphan was, sad. He wasn't, as almost every orphan was, looked at with pity and kindness, however. No, Naruto Uzumaki was looked at with disdain and hatred. Simply walking down the streets incurred several cruel beatings. He had no idea why, but the entire population of Konohagakure no Sato seemed to hate him. He had very few precious people, in fact the only ones he could name of the top of his head were Haruzen and Sarutobi, or as he had dubbed the Hokage, Gigi, Ayami, a girl who helped her father run a nearby ramen shop, and Tuki, the father of said girl. It was sad actually, a boy his age, 5, being hated by everyone. Naruto had learned this early on in life. He was hated in the orphanage he lived in as well. Ever since he learned to walk on his own, the matron of the orphanage started treating him like trash. He was not allowed to play with the children of his age, and even when he managed to talk to them, they would sneer at him and told him, in no uncertain words, that a monster like him was not welcome in the group. He would get sad and then leave. Walking the streets of the village was like trial by fire for him. He had to take careful measures to remain as unnoticeable as possible. If he got noticed, a civilian would point at him, shouting to others, "The demon is here. Get him." He would then run for his life, entering lanes and alleys, taking a shortcut through a shop, entering from the front door and exiting from the back, anything to escape the beatings. But it was suspicious that a 4-year-old boy was able to escape from the mobs. What no one, including Naruto, knew that Naruto had some special quirks. Naruto had an eidetic memory, the ability to remember and recall anything he sees or hear once, in great detail. Naruto loved to read books, but didn't know why he could recall every page of the book, down to the exact words. He found it very useful and abused it shamelessly, reading all the books he was allowed to and then some, without telling anyone of course. He didn't tell this to anybody, not even Gigi, fearing if this got out, he would get beaten for having freakish traits. But he also discovered the downside of having such an ability. One day, when running from a mob, he accidentally entered an alley which had a dead end. There was no escape for him that day. He was punched, kicked on every part of his body, until he fell unconscious. When he woke up, very mysteriously, in his room at the orphanage, healed up, he was very happy he did not die. However, when he tried to sleep that night, the beatings came back in full force in the form of nightmares. Because of his ability, he experienced the beatings down to the last detail. He couldn't sleep peacefully for several nights. Another one of his quirks was a sort of sensory ability. He could sense danger if it was coming to him. However, it was a subconscious ability of sorts, activating only when he was in danger. But it was very useful in avoiding punches and stones that came when his back was turned. The villagers' behavior in general towards Naruto caused him to develop a need for positive attention, but also a need to avoid people, preferring to keep to himself. He would not actively seek attention, but he would latch on like a leech to anyone who gave some form of caring to him. Sadly, the number of people who did could be counted on one hand. That was the reason he turned to books. At least they didn't attack him outright and allowed him to read them. Almost no one wanted to associate with him, leading him to take refuge in books. They became his best friends, always making him smile when he learned something new. Naruto had to force himself to learn reading and writing as the teachers at the orphanage did as less as they could to help him. They would simply thrust the books in hands, and go away to help other children. He learnt early not to ask questions, receiving physical punishment whenever he did. He had read about various topics, but the one thing that stood out to him was the topic of Hokage. How the Hokage was the most powerful shinobi in the village and was responsible for the village's safety. He read how powerful was the Shodai Hokage, with his unique Kekkei Genkai bloodline limit of Mokuton, the wood release. He was said to be the most powerful shinobi of his time, known as Shinobi no Kami, the god of shinobi. Hashirama Senju, along with Madara Uchiha, were the two main founders of Konoha. Ironically, both were also bitter enemies, with Hashirama having to kill Madara to protect the village. The Nadaime Hokage, Tobirama Senju, was the younger brother of Hashirama. He was and is still hailed as the most powerful suit and water release user of all time. He was also hailed the fastest shinobi of his time, having created the famous Hiraishin no Jutsu. He was the one who started the Ninja Academy. Naruto took a liking to him as he loved anything that was even remotely associated with speed. The Sandaime Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, that was his Gigi, was known as the Professor, because he could use all the nature transformations and had the unsurpassed knowledge of ninjutsu, knowing all the techniques in Konoha, save for clan techniques. He also shared the title of Shinobi no Kami with Hashirama, because in his prime he was the strongest of all Kages. Naruto was astounded how powerful was the man he called his Gigi. Sarutobi was also the sensei of the Densetsu no Sannin, the three legendary ninjas, who were among the most powerful shinobi in the world. The Yondaime Hokage was the one who became his favorite to the point that Naruto considered him as his idol, aspiring to be like him. Minato Namikaze, when he was alive, was considered the strongest of the Hokages and arguably, the most dangerous man to have graced the world of shinobi. Known as Konoha no Kiroi Senko, he was also considered the fastest shinobi to have ever lived. He was famous because he took the Hiraishin no Jutsu, the jutsu used by the Nadaime, to levels unheard of. He was the one who single-handedly ended the Third Great Shinobi War, finishing of 1,000 Iwa shinobi by himself, in the Battle of Kanobi Bridge. Naruto also took note that the Yondaime suspiciously looked very much like him if he grew up. Naruto compared their physical traits, more specifically those that stood out the most. They were both blonde, the hair color being near identical, with Naruto's a shade brighter. But the eyes were what took him by surprise. Those azure blue shades were what he had as well, looking back at him in the mirror every day. He became even more suspicious. During one of his outings, when his Gigi came to take him to the Ichiraku ramen that he loved so much, he asked him what it meant to be Hokage. Flashback. The old man stopped eating and looked at him, his eyes piercing him as if searching for something. He then smiled and said, "Perhaps you should ask me first, Naruto-kun, that what does it mean to be a shinobi?" Naruto looked surprised for a moment but recovered and asked, "What does it mean to be a shinobi?" This time Gigi answered, "To be a shinobi means to endure. A shinobi is one who can follow or lead others into any darkness and work together to overcome that darkness and make it out the other side. A shinobi walks towards danger when everyone else is running away, that is because it is the duty of a shinobi to look at any foe and simply say, 'Bring it.' That is because shinobi exist to protect those who can't protect themselves." Naruto had a look of wonder on his face. He had no idea Gigi was that wise. An answer like that changed Naruto's entire view of shinobi. At first he thought that being a shinobi only meant performing cool jutsus and fighting in the name of your village. He had no idea the answer would be this deep in meaning. Sarutobi looked at Naruto and mentally smiled. He knew about Naruto's treatment by the villagers and his drive to be Hokage. He mused, perhaps I can give him a little insight on what being a Hokage means. Naruto recovered from his wonder and stared at his empty bowl, deep in thought. If this is what being a shinobi meant, then he had a pretty good idea on what being a Hokage meant. He was snapped out of his thoughts when Gigi said, "Now that that answer is out of the way, I can tell you what being a Hokage." "I know, Gigi." Those words stopped Hiruzen in his tracks, his head tilting in curiosity. "You know what, Naruto-kun?" Naruto looked up, understanding and respect in his eyes. Hiruzen was touched at the respect he was receiving from Naruto, but his curiosity was increasing. What being a Hokage means? Hiruzen stared at him, silently asking him to continue. Naruto spoke up, "The Hokage is responsible for everything in this village. It's his responsibility to protect everyone here, and to make sure they are safe and happy with their village. He tends to the finances of this village, the rules, the daily events, everything. He controls every single ninja who bears a leaf headband, and basically directs when they live and die. This job is not for the faint of heart, and only for someone who loves this village deeply." At the end of his answer, he was staring back at his bowl. Hiruzen was shocked at the understanding Naruto showed of the position of Hokage. He had no idea that Naruto was this perceptive and knowledgeable. Tsuki and Ayami had stopped working as well, staring at the blonde with wide eyes along with the Hokage. It was simply unheard of, a 5-year-old showing such a deep understanding of something most people don't understand until much later in life. Hiruzen was shocked so much that he didn't notice his jaw was hanging a bit. Such a deep perception and insight at such a young age, he thought with wonder. Only one person had showed such understanding like this, and he too was 3 years older. Itachi Uchiha was a prodigy among the likes of Kakashi Hatake and Minato Namikaze. Such a shame he was now a missing nin. Naruto looked up when he felt a hand on his shoulder. Gigi was looking at him with a strange expression. That is exactly what being Hokage means, Naruto-kun. A challenging smile broke out on Naruto's face and he declared, "Then I will become Hokage someday, Gigi. And not just any Hokage. I will be the strongest there will be." Hiruzen chuckled, which soon turned to laughter. The father and daughter on the other side of the counter were also smiling fondly. Naruto frowned. What? I am serious. He was a little hurt that Gigi saw his declaration as a joke. Hiruzen soon calmed down, smiling fondly at the boy. He remembered another Uzumaki who used to say the same thing. But he had a strong feeling that Naruto would be right. He ruffled Naruto's head. "I know, Naruto-kun, I have no doubt you will." Flashback end. Ever since that day, Naruto studied even more rigorously and beginning physical training as well. Granted, a 4-year-old such as him could not do much, but he did his best. He ran 4 rounds around the village, did every exercise he could think of and practiced his kunai and shurikenjutsu. He took those weapons by sneaking into the practice grounds and collecting them. To his surprise, the art of throwing shuriken and kunai came very naturally to him. He started throwing after taking a book about weapons left behind on a training ground. He had shaken his head at the disrespect shown to the book, but took it with him anyway. Just 2 weeks of practice and he was throwing all bullseyes. That was not the only surprising thing. He had found that he could recover very quickly from physical exhaustion and wear and tear on his muscles. He recalled that he recovered surprisingly quickly after the beating from the villagers. A bloodline perhaps. He didn't dwell on it further, but filed it away for later. But today was special. So special that he would have to take extra measures in staying safe. Because today was his birthday, and he was just kicked out of the orphanage. Roaming in the streets, he suspected what would happen in the evening. Today was the day the villagers celebrated as the Kyuubi festival, the day the Yondaime defeated the Kyuubi, and the day he would be beaten within an inch of his life or hunted and possibly killed. An epiphany struck him like lightning, causing him to suddenly stop in middle of the street. Yondaime. Kyuubi's defeat, treatment of the villagers, Demon Boy, Gigi's avoidance of the topic. No, he wouldn't. Naruto ran from the street, meandering between people with the grace of a seasoned dancer or flowing water. He ran like it was no one's business, reaching his favorite spot, the head of the Yondaime, in record time. Anyone who saw him had flashbacks of another blonde running like a man possessed. I need to confirm whether it's true or not, he thought grimly, afraid of what he would find. He sat down on the head of the famed Hokage in a meditative posture and reached within, or rather, spoke within. "Kyuubi, if you are inside me, I want to meet you, please." For a full 5 minutes there was no reply and Naruto was beginning to relax when something pulled on his mind. Naruto opened his eyes to find himself in a dark corridor. He narrowed his eyes. "Is this my mindscape?" he thought in disgust as he walked forward. He kept walking for a few minutes and stopped, seeing some light at the end of the corridor. It seemed to pull him towards it. Time to find out what is at the end. With that thought, he walked again, stopping only until the end. It was a huge room, so large and vast it was that the ceiling was impossible to find. He looked around, his eyes seeing black stone and nothing more. But the elephant in the room was a large iron-barred door, with a paper on it that said seal. He gazed at the piece of paper, resignation written in his eyes. His azure eyes looked past the cage, looking for what he knew was in the cage. He was just waiting for the Kyuubi to open his eyes. Based on what he had read, Kyuubi was a being of pure hatred and evil. A mindless beast capable of destruction on a scale hitherto undreamt of. But Naruto was skeptical when he read that. He might get to see it for himself now. A growl sounded from the cage, sending a breath of hot air in Naruto's face. Naruto steeled himself, in spite of the cage separating him from the beast within. An enormous red eye opened, causing Naruto to tense up. The eye looked at him, as if evaluating him. The eye then started to rise, causing Naruto to look up at the massive form. The Kyuubi had orange, silky-looking fur, with black markings around his eyes connected to his, funnily enough, rabbit-like ears. The upper body was humanoid, including the hands. The lower body was just like a fox, barring the 9 long swaying tails in the back. Fire was the closest thing they looked like. The red, slitted eyes looked him closely with a hint of malice. Naruto spoke first. "Thank you for answering my call, Kyuubi," he said with a nod. If Kyuubi was surprised, he didn't show it. Inside, however, he was mighty shocked. This was not the first thing he expected his jailer to say. He expected him to look at him with fear, asking whether he really was the Kyuubi, following with the denial of the possibility. He did expect him to thank him at all. He replied, "Think nothing of it. I'm surprised though, that you were able to figure it out so quickly." "Why aren't you surprised?" he asked with curiosity. Naruto sat down in front of the cage, which surprised the great Bayu further. Naruto was showing that he was willing to relax in front of him. "Well, I was, for a few moments at least. But it wasn't that difficult to figure out. It is easy to create a plausible theory once you have all the relevant facts," he said, never breaking eye contact with the Kyuubi. Kyuubi raised a massive eyebrow, silently impressed with his host. His thought processes were very intelligent for someone who was only 5 years old. He was bold as well, bold enough to maintain eye contact with him. He also could not sense any fear from the boy. "Why aren't you afraid of me?" he asked him. Without a moment of hesitance, Naruto answered, "Because you were misunderstood." This time surprise was visible on Kyuubi's face, which was quickly followed by anger. "What did you just say?" "Choose your next words very carefully," he growled out. Naruto wasted no time in answering, "In all the books I have read, they described you as a being of pure hatred. But that is only a one-sided understanding, isn't it?" he asked with a sad smile. Before Kyuubi could answer, Naruto continued, "Humans fear what they can't understand. The foremost aspect of your personality that they have seen is hatred, which, while a big part of you, conceals the being underneath that can feel emotions just like us. Isn't that right, Kyuubi?" Kyuubi was astounded at the amount of understanding his host showed towards him. Perhaps he could. "What do you want?" Naruto looked at him with his azure blues, reminding Kyuubi of another set of blues that looked at him fearlessly before sealing him. "If you wouldn't mind," a hesitant smile appeared on Naruto's face, "would you be my friend?" Kyuubi was truly stupefied at the request. For the first time, in centuries of his existence, someone had asked if they could be his friend. Naruto saw that the Kyuubi was surprised, and for the Kyuubi, if Naruto's request was not surprising enough, he was totally blown away by what Naruto did next. Naruto got up from his spot and walked into the cage. He walked up close and offered a hand for him to take. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki, and it is nice to meet you." Kyuubi had abandoned all signs of remaining composed and was openly gaping at Naruto. But he composed himself quickly and gave a sincere smile to Naruto. Seeing Naruto was too small to even shake his finger, he extended his index nail to him. "My name is Kurama. Nice to meet you too, Naruto." Naruto smiled, "You have a very nice name, Kurama." The newly dubbed Kurama smiled, "Thank you. It means a lot coming from someone whose name means fish cake." Kurama smirked at the end, intentionally making the jab at Naruto's name to see if he could rile the boy up. His success was only minuscule though. Naruto only had a tiny frown on his face, instead of the full-blown childish rage Kurama was expecting. "Actually, I prefer the other meaning of my name. Maelstrom is much better than being compared to a fish cake, Kurama." Kurama chuckled, a smooth, deep baritone that lit up a warm feeling inside Naruto. Naruto decided he liked Kurama's voice. "No one would think of a maelstrom when they look at you, Naruto. Perhaps when you are older, but certainly not now," Kurama teased him. Naruto shrugged, and then his eyes turned serious, making Kurama do the same. Naruto asked the Bayu, "Kurama, you know I have questions, right?" Kurama nodded, "I assumed as such. However, I had expected us to meet when you were significantly older. I have to say, I was not expecting your call to me." Naruto shook his head. "Well, if it makes you feel better, I was not expecting you to pull me inside my mind," he said, absently noting that he was not wet at all, in spite of standing and sitting in the water. Kurama returned to his earlier position, lying down, face on his paws, hands. "I will do my best to answer whatever question you have, Naruto," he assured him. Naruto gave him a nod of gratitude and sat down as well. Okay, first question. Why does my mindscape represent a gutter or a sewer, whatever you want to call it? Kurama looked silent for a moment, after which a mischievous grin broke out on his face, exposing his sharp canines. You know what they say about people whose minds are in the gutter, right? Naruto gave him a blank look, reminding Kurama that Naruto, however intelligent for his age, was still only 5 years old. Kurama's embarrassed blush would have been visible on his face if his fur were not orange. He cleared his throat loudly to avoid embarrassment. Sorry Naruto, but I have no idea why your mindscape is a sewer. There is a theory that says that your mindscape is a reflection of your mental state. It could have been the psychological trauma that was given to you by the villagers, but why it is particularly a sewer, I don't know, he replied. Naruto absorbed the information like a sponge and after a few seconds, he asked Kurama, so, I have psychological trauma. I knew about that. Which means that even if I change the appearance of my mindscape to something else, there will always be something that represents the trauma, right? Kurama inclined his head in agreement, smiling a little, that's right. I have to say though, it's nice to talk to someone who is intelligent. Naruto's eyes visibly brightened up at the praise, giving a full-blown smile to his newest friend. Kurama noted with some amusement the grin looked very similar to his own and a redhead. Naruto jumped to his feet. Your answer just confirmed something for me, Kurama. His eyes had a mix of excitement and determination to them, as if he was about to do something new. Naruto closed his eyes and clapped his hands together, face scrunched up in concentration. Kurama observed him quietly, wondering what his host was about to do. Naruto snapped his eyes open after a few minutes, having envisioned what he was about to do. With a cry of "Ha!" he slammed his right hand on the ground. What happened next completely blew away his mind. A wave of energy exploded from Naruto in all the directions, completely lighting up the mindscape and almost blinding Kurama. Was it chakra that exploded from him? How is that even possible when he hasn't even unlocked it yet? That pulse of chakra completely shredded everything it came in contact with. Naruto may have possibly destroyed his own mind. With a thought running through Kurama's head. When he opened his eyes, however, he was stupefied to a degree he didn't think was possible. His eyes were wide, his jaw was hanging, making him look quite comical. A beautiful valley greeted his eyes. Grounds that were lush and a shade of green that looked heavenly, streams with water clearer than he had ever seen. The grass felt soft under his limbs and there was a massive oak tree with a shade that made it great for naps. The cage around him had disappeared, instead replaced with a collar which had the same piece of paper from before with the kanji for seal written on it. He looked at Naruto in wonder. This kid was a package of one surprise after another. Naruto got up from his position, looking no worse for wear. He smiled satisfactorily. This is so much better than before. Wouldn't you agree, Kurama? He asked, turning to him. Kurama was smiling like he was the happiest being on earth. No one had ever done anything for him, and Naruto, who had just met him, had already done so much for him. Kurama looked at Naruto with gratitude in his eyes. Thank you, Naruto. You have no idea how much this means to me. Naruto just shook his head at him. Don't worry about it. We are friends, right? Kurama nodded, feeling excitement in a long time, wanting to explore what Naruto had created for him. He was about to leave when Naruto's voice stopped him, mid-step. However, it seems strange that there is no presence of a celestial body in the sky. I had envisioned it just like outside, he mused, a frown on his 5-year-old face that would have earned him so many squeals of kawaii from girls. Kurama too wondered what the reason could be, and quickly figured it out. He looked up in thought. Perhaps it is because of the seal, he muttered. Naruto looked up at him, confusion written clear on his face. What do you mean? Kurama looked down at Naruto. The seal that keeps me inside you, Naruto. If it was only you, you would have had absolute control over your mindscape. But since I am here as well, the control gets divided equally. However, control on my side is restricted because of this seal. The absence of the sun or the moon that you envisioned could signify that this place is cut off from my senses. In easier terms, the outside world, he explained. Naruto processed Kurama's answer. If the seal was restricting Kurama's activity. What do you propose I should do, Kurama? Kurama put his hand under his chin. He could see only one way around this, and if Naruto messed up, it could spell trouble for both of them. But he would try his best to not let that happen. You would have to tear off a very small piece of paper on my collar. Leave the rest to me, Kurama assured him. When Naruto looked a bit hesitant, Kurama told him, "Don't worry, Naruto. You can do it. If something goes wrong, I will take care of it." The reassurance erased any doubt from Naruto's face, and he promptly marched up to Kurama's collar, making sure to tear only the smallest piece of paper. Kurama nodded in satisfaction and approval. He could feel a tiny bit of control get back to him. Just a snap of his fingers and the sun appeared in the sky, lighting up the valley, making it even more beautiful. Naruto smiled at the sight, but it faded at the sight of a cave that he instinctively knew not to go near. He turned back to Kurama, who had an expression of curiosity on his face. "Naruto, what was that wave of energy that exploded from you earlier? And how did you know how to change your mindscape?" Naruto gave him an innocent look. "It is my mind, Kurama. I can make anything happen in here." As for the energy wave, his expression turned sheepish and he rubbed the back of his head, reminding him of the boy's mother who had the same habit. It just seemed cooler than simply changing the surroundings in the blink of an eye. This time it was Kurama who gave him a blank look. A sweet drop appeared on the side of his head at the sheepish laugh of his host. He shook his head. It seemed Naruto liked to be a dramatic smartass. He concentrated and nodded in satisfaction. He could now sense chakra signatures of almost the whole village. Once Naruto opened his eyes, Kurama would be able to see as well. "Nevertheless, you have my thanks. Allow me to repay with something that will come in very handy once you become a shinobi." Kurama smiled, raising a fingernail and very gently touching Naruto's forehead. The nail shined for a moment and then faded back. Naruto raised an eyebrow. "What was that?" Kurama smiled mysteriously. "Why don't you discover it yourself? I can feel several chakra signatures closing in on you. Time for you to open your eyes, Naruto." Naruto nodded and turned to leave, but froze. He slowly turned around and smiled embarrassedly. "How do I leave?" Kurama had to squash the urge to facepalm. It seemed that Naruto had his moments of stupidity every now and then. "Just jump into the water, fishcake," he said exasperatedly. Naruto frowned at fishcake, but nodded and with a leap that was impossible for any child his age, jumped into the water. Kurama shook his head, amused. It was only because Naruto was in his own mind that he was able to do so. "Perhaps I should have told him that he could get out with just a thought," he mused. Then he removed that thought immediately. "Nah, it's too much fun messing with him." XXXXXXX. Naruto opened his eyes slowly, without a hurry. He was thinking about what gift did Kurama give him when he felt it. Like something, someone was coming his way. He slowly turned his head around, face paling at the sight. Dozens of people, knives, clubs, crowbars in hand, excited expressions on their faces, shouting, "Today is the day you die, demon. We will finish what the Yondaime started, and we will avenge him." Naruto's expression had turned utterly horrified. There was only one way to get off the monument without falling splat on the pavement. Outrun and outmaneuver the mob. He wasted no time. He kicked up to his feet and immediately started running in a perpendicular direction to the mob. Since he had been running regularly for 1 year, he had built up some pretty good speed and endurance. His plan was to take a wide arc around the mob and as soon as it was behind him, hightail it into the streets where he could lose them. He took off into the forest, the mob following him closely behind. As he began to cut an arc around the mob, hairs on the back of his neck stood up, a clear sign of danger. However, unlike before when he could only detect danger, this time he could feel the direction the weapon was coming from. Naruto was an imaginative child. From where he had developed his imagination, no one knew. But there was one thing about his imagination that even he knew was not normal. His body had the most unnatural and peculiar ability of following the commands of his mind down to a T. As soon as he had sensed the knife speeding at him, he thought of only one escape scenario, and his body followed it as it did before several times, just not in a life and death scenario. He jumped, body in the air, rotating like a screwdriver, the knives going under him, missing him by just a few inches. He rolled on the ground to soften his landing, and continued running away, successfully getting the mob behind him and the road in front of him. He managed to get to the streets, where he purposefully chose the market street where he could lose them. He knew the civilians could not do the tricks that he could. He vaulted neatly over several carts without losing momentum, each time increasing the gap between him and the mob. He turned left at an intersection, and jumped up a wall, hanging on the other side until he was sure the sounds of the mob faded away. He jumped back on the road. He took a moment to catch a breath. If he was not mistaken, he had run at full speed for close to 3 miles. Impressive for a 5-year-old, the familiar voice of Kurama sounded in his head. Naruto looked surprised for a moment, but then shook his head. It was probably because of the change that he had done to the seal. He also chalked it up to adrenaline that he had run so far and fast. That was a lot difficult than he had imagined, but he blamed it on his clothes. An orange jumpsuit stuck out like a sore thumb among the masses. It was as if he had stuck a piece of paper behind his back saying, "Kill me." The blonde hair wasn't helping either. But then again, he had nothing else to wear. The keepers at the orphanage looked very satisfied when they had given him the jumpsuit. They probably wanted him to be spotted in case he attempted to hide from a mob. Too bad they underestimated him. So deep he was in his musings that he didn't notice he had entered an area of Konoha no one had taken a stroll in for at least 5 years. He looked when he saw he was standing before the gates of a beautiful mansion. "Naruto, open the gates of the mansion. Let's explore," Kurama's excited voice sounded in his head. Naruto shook his head. "I would be an idiot to even touch the gate. Can't you see all the seals engraved on it?" Kurama insisted. "Do it. Who knows, you might get a surprise." Naruto frowned at the behavior of the fox, but followed his advice anyway. He placed his hand on the seal of the gate and closed his eyes, as if waiting to be blown up. He didn't notice the seals glow slightly. He opened his eyes when nothing happened. Tentatively, he pushed the gate and to his surprise, it opened easily. The seals must be malfunctioning if a strange like me could enter in here, he thought. The mansion was beautiful. It was a traditional 2-story mansion, surrounded by lush, green grounds. There was even a small pond with clear water in front of the house. Whoever this house belongs to must be insanely wealthy, he thought with wonder. Money was something that was rarely available to him. He decided not to dwell on it further. As he approached the front door, he began to think it was a bad idea coming here. What if someone spotted him? What if he accidentally activated a trap? He cautiously turned the doorknob, hearing it click open. He opened the door fully, seeing the dark living room with a sofa and comfortable chairs. He turned on the light, surprised that electricity still flowed in the circuits of the house. But it was all covered in a thick layer of dust. The owner has been gone for a long time, but why, he wondered. As he turned in the direction of the fireplace, he stopped short at what he saw. The first thing that caught his eye was the uniquely shaped kunai embedded in a stone slab placed on top of the fireplace. Every shinobi or to-be shinobi worth his or her salt would recognize the tri-pronged kunai. It was the Yondaim's kunai. He now knew that this house belonged to the deceased Hokage. Crap. He had just broken into the Yondaim's house. Double crap. He was just about to turn tail when Kurama's voice sounded in his head, "What's that?" He turned around again, seeing the portrait above the fireplace for the first time. It was Minato Namikaze, decked out in full Hokage uniform, along with a beautiful redhead wearing a high-collared, sleeveless blouse under a long, loose-fitting dress with a wristband on her left wrist and standard shinobi sandals. A medium-sized bulge on her stomach made him realize that she was pregnant. But that was not what caught his eye. The redhead was waving a peace sign, with a very familiar grin. The same one he wore whenever his mischievous tendencies surfaced or when he was really happy. Her face was also very similar looking to his own. Her exquisite violet eyes were shaped just like his eyes. With a jolt, the pieces of a puzzle that he could never solve arranged themselves, forming a long sought-after answer. Blonde hair, azure blue eyes, the familiar grin, same shaped face, identically shaped eyes. He had just found out the identities of his parents. Congratulations, kid. You finally found them. Kurama's smooth voice was softer this time. Naruto stood in front of the fireplace, eyes glued to the portrait, a storm of emotions raging inside of him. He didn't know what to feel, whether to be happy that he finally has found out who his parents are, or what he thought bitterly. Or whether to feel hurt that his Gigi hid his parents' identity from him, or whether to feel furious at the treatment from the village. His hands were clenched so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Kurama consoled him, "It's okay to feel this way, Naruto. Anyone who would have been in your shoes would have felt the same. Naruto finally sat down in Indian position, the energy leaving his legs. He tried to think something, but the thoughts evaded him, only the image of his parents situated in his minds. He was finally with his parents, yet at the same time, he was not. Tears finally fell from his eyes from holding them back for so long. He cried for a long time, finally letting his emotions have an outlet. For the first time in his life, he felt like he was alone in the whole world. Sniffling, he asked inside his head, "Kurama, did you know about this?" Kurama remained silent for a few moments, which were enough for Naruto to deduce that he knew. Kurama knew, and he still didn't tell him. "I did know, Naruto. After all, you shared the same space with me for 9 months inside your mother," the fox replied softly. Naruto cried even harder after hearing this. It was like a whole new storm colliding with storm that was already raging inside him. On one hand, he was happy that he and Kurama were together even before he came into this world. On the other hand, he felt betrayed that Kurama would hide something like this from him. He was too emotional to make sense of Kurama's statement right now. He felt really alone. After he finally stopped crying, he stood up too tired to explore the house right now. Hell, he was too tired to even form a coherent thought. Somehow, he climbed the stairs, opened the first door that was in front of him, and fell onto the bed, asleep before even hitting the soft mattress. XXXXXXX. Hiruzen was panicking. He knew what the day was, and he had been wanting to get out of this office to spend time with his surrogate grandson. But fate seemed to have other plans for him, as instead of having the normal amount, 3 stacks of paperwork in front of him, he was literally buried in the paperwork. He assigned 2 of his Anbu, Parrot and Ox, to keep an eye on Naruto. Sadly, he didn't know and was unaware that the 2 Anbu were firmly against the demon boy. He didn't know that they were the ones who gave the mob directions to where Naruto was in the evening. It was only when they came to report that he found out the truth. The 2 Anbu appeared in his office and knelt down in front of him. "Report," he ordered. Parrot was the first one to speak. "We lost the boy, Hokage-sama. Because today is the Kyuubi festival, crowds were thick and that is where we lost him." Unfortunately for the 2, Hiruzen didn't believe them for a second. If not for the seriousness that the situation demanded, he would have laughed out loud that a 5-year-old was able to lose them in a crowd. Anbu were specifically trained for such scenarios. Secondly, he caught both of the slips of tongue. Demon and it were not so hard to deduce. Hiruzen rarely felt anger. In fact, he rarely found a reason to get angry. Even Danzo could only get a small amount of irritation out of him. But right now, he was past irritated. No, he was downright furious. All the Anbu in the room felt it. The ridiculous amount of killing intent that was coming from the Hokage. Shit, both the Anbu thought. "Cat, bear," he shouted. In an instant, the 2 Anbu were kneeling in front of the Hokage, just behind Parrot and Ox. "Orders, Hokage-sama." Hiruzen barked out, "Take these 2 to Ibiki. Tell him to hold nothing back and find out what they were doing this evening. Also, tell Inoiki that I want to know every face that was there in the mob." Quote. "Hi, Hokage-sama." The 2 Anbu instantly caught the traitorous ANBUs and promptly flickered out. Now that he was somewhat calm, the previous panic returned. Where was Naruto? Was he injured? Worse, was he dead? Was he even in the village? He took out his ball that he used to keep tabs on the village occasionally. Mostly, he used it to ensure whether Naruto was alright or not. He channeled his chakra through the ball, searching for Naruto. However, he was floored when nothing came up. He repeated his search 2 more times, just to be sure. The result remained the same. He did not like where this was going. It was a strong possibility that Naruto was outside village walls. "Dog, tiger," he called out. In an instant, the mentioned 2 were before him. "Track him down, no matter what. Even search outside the village if you have to." "Hi, Hokage-sama." They flickered out. Hiruzen sat down with a heavy sigh. He was mentally exhausted from the paperwork he had been doing all damn day and then this. "Where are you, Naruto-kun?" He decided to sleep in his office and wait for them to come back and report, trusting his Anbu. XXXXXXX. The sun's rays peeked from in between the curtains, falling straight onto Naruto's face. Blearily, he opened his eyes. Although he slept peacefully last night, he was mentally and emotionally exhausted. This type of exhaustion was new to him, having never experienced it before. At first, he had no idea where he was, but then last night's memories came back to him. He viciously fought back the tears that threatened to fall out again. No, I will not cry again. I did enough of that last night. He reminded himself. It was time, he decided, to think through this logically. First things first, morning rituals. He got up from the bed and headed to the bathroom. Surprisingly, it was very clean and dust-free, compared to the rest of the house. Weird, he thought before closing the door. Second, he needed to get out of here and meet his Gigi. He had no desire to meet that man now, but the man had looked after him like his own. He was there for him when no one was. He was probably worried sick. Although he was dying to explore the house, it was best not to worry the old man even more. Besides, the faster he could get this over with, the quicker he could return here to explore. Besides, who knows, maybe his parents left something for him. As soon as he closed the gate behind him, he was surprised to see the seals on the gate glow a bit before the gate locked itself. They were not malfunctioning. The seals recognized my chakra, which is why I was able to get in, he thought in awe. He had read that the Yondaime was regarded as a seal master of the highest caliber, but seeing it with his own eyes was entirely different. Sensing his chakra signature when he hadn't even unlocked his chakra. His father was awesome. That decided for him. If his father could do fuinjutsu like this, he will too. And he would be better than him. He then turned to leave, when a thought struck him. He was about to dwell on it, but he roughly shook himself out of it. I don't have time. I have to meet Gigi. With that, he ran out of the area, picking up speed when he realized he was quite far from the Hokage tower. En route, he mentally nudged his friend. Hey, Kurama, you awake right now? For a few seconds he heard nothing, then he heard a yawn in his head, almost making him do the same before he viciously squashed the urge. What's up, Naruto? Naruto faltered in his running, almost falling flat on his face. He couldn't help the grin that came on his face. Hearing Kurama, an ancient demon, using the slang that kids his age do was hilarious. A stray thought from last night's conversation with Kurama. About last night, what did you mean when you said that we shared the same space for 9 months inside my mother? He asked curiously, turning serious once more. Kurama replied, I meant what I said, Naruto. You are smart enough to figure out the answer to your question. Naruto's expression turned grim at that. It meant he and his mother were exactly the same, host of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. But why was his mother Jinchuriki? Kurama interrupted his thoughts. Naruto blinked at that. What? Kurama elaborated. Jinchuriki is the term that you are looking for. It means power of the human sacrifice. They are humans who have a tailed beast sealed inside them. Naruto did not falter even for a second after this revelation. He was almost halfway to the tower, which means he could learn a little more. I get what you mean. What I don't understand is why my mother was a Jinchuriki before me. Also, what is my mother's name? Why was I made into one? Questions were coming one after the other like water from a running tap. Kurama raised his eyebrows at the onslaught of questions. Whoa. Slow down, Naruto. You have to understand that I cannot answer all of your questions. Naruto was a little peeved at that. Why not? Kurama simply shrugged at that, acting as if he didn't even notice Naruto's anger, because there is an old man who can answer these questions better than I can. Naruto calmed down at that. Kurama was right. He had no hand in who he was sealed. Gigi was the Hokage, he was the one who probably knew more about these matters. Another thought struck him, but the tower was within his sight now. Better make this fast, he mused. Hey Kurama, what was that you gave me last night as a gift? He asked. He could see Kurama grin in his mindscape. I'm surprised you could pick up on that. The fact that you unintentionally used it is even more impressive. Naruto scowled a little. Stop beating around the bush, Kurama. Just tell me. Kurama, however, did not budge. Don't tell me you can't figure it out, Naruto. You may not know, but I can feel how close you are to figuring it out. Naruto was slowly getting irritated with the game of riddles that Kurama was deliberately dragging on. He was about to give him a mental scar to remember when he suddenly figured it out. He had actually felt the mob approaching. Did you actually give me a sensory ability? Kurama shrugged. Naruto mentally whooped, thank you so much, Kurama. Secondly, his tone turned menacing, causing Kurama to lift an eyebrow. This is for annoying me with riddles. With that, he turned his entire mindscape orange. He would cherish Kurama's yell of horror forever. He reached the Hokage tower, panting only lightly. Standing in front of the tower, he felt a little anxiety creeping up inside him. He faced the sky. What is the time, Kurama? Observing the position of the sun, it should be around 6 in the morning, he deduced. Naruto idly questioned himself, would Gigi be even awake at this hour? He shook his head. He would not back down now. He steeled himself and entered the tower. Seeing almost no one in the corridors, he almost turned back, but resolutely thought to himself that he would wait for him. He arrived in front of the Hokage's office. Seeing the absence of the secretary he knew was supposed to be here, he sat on the bench outside the office. This was his first time in the Hokage tower, so he decided to look around. But there was not much to look around. All the important stuff must be someplace where only authorized people could access it, he assumed. Sighing, he closed his eyes, figuring he could talk to Kurama about his newly acquired sensory abilities. Kurama, how could I sense the mob before when I haven't even unlocked my chakra? Kurama thought about it a bit and then answered. He had nothing else to do anyway. Good observation, Naruto. It is simple. It was a newly awakened ability. Naturally, it would require time before it stabilizes. But before that happens, it is unstable for a little while. It was in that time period that you could sense the mob. If you were to try it now, you won't be able to use it, he explained, keeping it simple so Naruto could understand it. After hearing Kurama's explanation, Naruto concluded that the ability Kurama had given was a chakra-dependent ability. He could only use it as long as he infused chakra, that too, in a specific way so that he could sense. Damn, that means I have to first unlock my chakra, he pouted. Kurama again spoke up, before I forget, I did something else as well. Sensor ability was not the only thing I gave you. Naruto rose an eyebrow in confusion. Now that he thought about it, not many kids his age could do that. What do you mean? Kurama expanded on his statement, I tweaked your ability to sense danger as well. Naruto nodded, I noticed that. Kurama's grin became sly, then did you also notice that when your danger sense activated, your surroundings seemed to slow down? Naruto froze. Did that really happen? He thought back to the events of last night, specifically when he avoided the knives that were about to skewer him. He did remember seeing the knives coming in a sort of slow motion. Damn. He mentally whistled, holy shit, you were right. I remember that. How is that possible anyway? This ability would be so useful in the future. Kurama shrugged, it was my way of saying thanks for what you did for me last night, Naruto. Naruto deliberated on whether to try and unlock his chakra right now, or to wait to enter the academy and then unlock it. So deep he was in his thoughts, he did not notice the Hokage coming his way. XXXXXXX. Hiruzen had a restless night. The aged Hokage's worry increased when Dog and Tiger came back after a search that lasted 4 hours. They reported that they searched every corner of the village, every possible place where Naruto might be, but found nothing. Hiruzen had dismissed them and headed back to his home, turning in for a sleepless and worrisome night. When he got up in the morning, his first thought was about whether Naruto was alive or not. He immediately got up, shaking off the morning drowsiness like a seasoned veteran. He quickly got dressed and used the body flicker to get to the Hokage tower. He quickly climbed the stairs that led to his office, intent on resuming the search for Naruto as soon as possible. He froze in his tracks, however, when he saw a familiar orange jumpsuit-wearing kid, deep in his thoughts, which was not unusual for him. Naruto. His exclamation was filled with relief and happiness. Naruto looked up, and Hiruzen knew something was wrong when instead of seeing the usual face-splitting grin, he was greeted with a small smile filled with sadness. Nevertheless, he grabbed the boy into a bear hug, which Naruto did not hesitate to reciprocate. Are you okay, Naruto-kun? Where were you last night? The questions rushed out like water breaking from a dam. He felt tons lighter than he did last night. Naruto gave him a small smile and said, somewhat Gigi, and as for the second question, I need to talk to you in private. Relieved but his confusion growing, he ushered the boy in his office. Naruto's keen eyes scanned the office, looking for places where shinobi might be hidden. The Hokage cannot be without bodyguards, after all. The upper 4 corners of the room, that's where they are hidden, Kurama supplied helpfully. Naruto gave him a nod of thanks and then turned his attention to the aging Hokage. So, Naruto-kun, what did you want to talk about? Naruto debated whether to tell the old man to make his Anbu leave, but decided to kill two birds with one stone. I know who my parents are. That simple statement changed the entire atmosphere of the office. Hiruzen tensed up and so did the Anbu in the office. To those who were intelligent, it was quite easy to deduce just whose son Naruto Uzumaki was. Fortunately or unfortunately, those were very few. However, Naruto's file itself was classified, with no one but only the Hokage had access to. To find out that Naruto knew about something that only the Hokage had the right to know was very unexpected. Hiruzen wasted no time, waving hand seals. The Anbu recognized the order to leave them alone. They vanished and Hiruzen activated the privacy seals in the office. He gave his complete attention to Naruto, and who were they? Naruto was unnerved by the caution in the old man's eyes, but steeled himself and answered, the Yondaime Hokage and his wife. Hiruzen closed his eyes in acceptance and resignation. He always knew Naruto would find out, he just never expected it would be so soon. He opened them to find himself on the receiving end of Naruto's accusing stare. Why did you pretend you didn't know, Gigi? Hiruzen barely caught himself from flinching. He gave a sigh, who told you? Naruto promptly answered back, I figured it out myself. How? The curiosity was killing him. He had to know if someone was out there wielding such dangerous information. Naruto recounted the events of last night and at the end of his explanation, Hiruzen was both relieved and curious. Relieved because he was glad that no one besides Naruto and him knew his parents' identity, curious because he never knew that Minato had found a way to hide from his peeping ball. Both him and Naruto sat in silence for a while. Naruto was the one to break it first, hurt in his voice, Gigi, why did you not tell me? Hiruzen responded, weariness coloring his tone, Naruto, you have to understand that your father had many enemies. I could not afford to take the chance that you wouldn't blurt it out accidentally. Anger finally filled Naruto, do you have any idea how desperate I was for answers? He whispered, but the anger in his voice was as clear as the sky. Guilt hit the Hokage with the force of Guy's fist. He could honestly not relate to Naruto's situation. Do you know, Naruto's voice was a bit louder this time, how it broke me to not know the identity of my own parents. He was shouting at the end. I have the right to that information more than any other person in the world. Tears were freely flowing down Naruto's face by now. Hiruzen himself was shedding tears of his own. Naruto was right in that account. He had a right to know who the people were who brought him into this world. More so than anyone. But as the Hokage, his decision had to be logical. Sentiment could not be afforded by someone of his position. Naruto had calmed down after a few minutes. I have a question, Gigi. And I want an honest answer. He was glaring at the Hokage by now. Hiruzen wiped his own tears and answered, I will do my best. Naruto was looking at his feet, did they love me? Hiruzen smiled this time, nostalgically, Naruto, you were their world even before you were born. Naruto felt as if a weight had been taken off his shoulders. He had always wanted to know if his parents loved him. What child didn't? Did they leave something for me? That question caught Hiruzen off guard, however he was able to recover quickly, yes they did, but I don't know where. Naruto leant back in his seat, eyes on the ceiling, thinking. If it was in this office, Gigi would know, which means it is probably in his house. Kurama, would you know by any chance? He decided to ask the fox. Damn, I was hoping to watch you scuttle around for answers. It is always entertaining, Kurama grumbled. Naruto mentally raised an eyebrow, so you do know. Yes, in fact, it is the place where everyone would least suspect, answered the demon. Naruto waited for more but it never came. He mentally huffed, fine, I'll do it myself. And just for leaving me in the suspense, he changed his mindscape to orange, again. Kurama's howls were somehow louder than before. In a place where everyone would least suspect. Where could that be? From what is written in the books, Dad was a very humble man, but the size of the house implies he liked to live in comfort. Since he was a seal master, a study where he did his work would also be there. But he would place seals all over it to be safe. Everyone would expect him to keep the important stuff in his study, locked tight, he thought. Like lightning, the answer came to him, causing his eyes to widen slightly, seals can be broken if someone is skilled enough. But no one expects to find treasure buried right under their noses. Which means what isn't in the study, is right in front of me. The image of his parents' portrait came into his mind. He stood up from the chair with such force that it was knocked backwards. I know where it is. Hiruzen jumped up at the shout, eyes wide. No what, Naruto-kun? But Naruto was already running towards the window. Hiruzen hurriedly deactivated the privacy seals, just in time. Naruto opened the window, and jumped onto the slope of the Hokage tower. His speed easily carried him towards the edge of the slope. He executed a perfect cartwheel on the edge, his hands holding on and legs going over in an arc onto the wall. He then released his hold, falling towards the ground. He rolled perfectly to soften his landing and then ran full throttle, back to the house of his parents. Hiruzen had gone pale as soon as he saw Naruto cartwheeling over the edge and letting go. However, panic gave way to relief when he saw Naruto had landed perfectly and was running away. That boy will send me to an early grave, he thought as he prepared to follow. He gave the order to stand by to his Anbu as he darted after Naruto. He had to admit, for his age Naruto was unusually fast. He easily caught up to Naruto, who was easily ignoring the stares around him. Hiruzen asked the excited boy, Naruto-kun, do you mind if I take us there quicker? I know where you are going. Naruto glanced at him and said, then pick me up and do it. Hiruzen nodded as he did just that and vanished in a body flicker. The villagers thought the Hokage was chasing the demon boy to kill him, and when they saw him pick it up and vanish, they smiled. Everyone continued about their business, not suspecting a thing. Villagers of Konoha are idiots, anyway. XXXXXXX. Both the Hokage and Naruto stood in front of his parents' portrait. Naruto spoke, without removing his eyes. I forgot to ask in the excitement, Gigi. What was my mother's name? Though he asked just that, Hiruzen thought it was better to tell him her story now rather than later. Her name was Kushina Uzumaki. She was a woman who was fearless, blunt, brash and one of the most amazing people I've ever met. She was a deadly kunoichi as well. It is her name that you carry, Naruto, is nostalgic. Naruto was amazed that his mother was so lovely. Beautiful, as well as deadly. Naruto mentally applauded his father for landing such a catch and promised to do the same. She was from Azushiogakur, the land hidden in whirlpools. The Uzumakis were distant relatives of the Senju clan, the clan of the Shodai and Nadaime Hokage. They were feared for their fuinjutsu skills. They were the undisputed masters of the art. It was your mother who taught your father fuinjutsu. They had immensely dense and large chakra reserves, which gave them a longer life than any other ninja. Some of them had special chakra, which they could physically manifest in the form of chains. Your mother was one of them, he recalled, with Naruto soaking it all up like a little child hearing stories from his parents. Hearing how powerful his mother's clan and by extension, his mother was in fuinjutsu, his resolve to master it only strengthened. He wanted to ask him why she was made the Jinchuriki of Kurama, but let it go. He could always ask another day. He turned his attention back to the portrait. He could not find any seals, but given his parents' skills in fuinjutsu, they could have made a seal that hid all other seals. How do we go about this, Gigi? Hiruzen pinched his chin in thought. There was a high possibility that the portrait only required Naruto's blood to open. Letters from parents were only meant to be read by family, after all. You have to apply a bit of blood on the portrait, Naruto-kun. If something such as letters from your parents is there, Minato would trust no one but his blood to read them. He took out a kunai and silently asked Naruto if he could slice his hand. Naruto gave him his hand without protest. Quickly and efficiently, Hiruzen sliced Naruto's thumb, opening up a small cut. Naruto, knowing his fast healing would seal it within seconds, instantly wiped his thumb on the painting before it closed. For a second, nothing happened. Naruto and Hiruzen thought that they might have been wrong, but then the whole frame of the painting lit up, showing intricate seals that only an Uzumaki or Minato would have hopes of understanding. There was a small click, and the portrait pushed out a little. Naruto, more eager than he had ever been in his life, opened the portrait. Inside there was something very unexpected. That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.